Hello everyone, good morning to all of you. Today I will resume my class on Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, part of the 4th semester syllabus. Now, we have already discussed, I think, up to 14th stanza. Now, let me resume 15th stanzas. Now, before starting the class, let me recapitulate the previous stanzas. In the previous stanzas, few stanzas, 2 or 3 stanzas, Gray claimed that these villagers had the potentialities. They are like gems beneath the ocean. They are like flowers in the desert. No one to see them, no one to find them, no one to witness their talent, their merit. Why? Because they are unfortunate. Because they couldn't afford to study, to make themselves popular, to make themselves known to the world. And also, the circumstance is responsible. So far, this text is very sentimental in its appeal to death, mortality, life, the simplicity of these villagers, their unfortunate circumstance. Now, from these stanzas, from 15 stanzas onwards, we will see that this poem deviates slightly towards a satiric vein. You know that satire, especially verse satire, was and had been very popular during neoclassical era. In fact, the time that Gray was writing, in fact, at the middle of 18th century. You know that early part of the 18th century was purely neoclassical. It was an age of prose and reason. People, especially the literate people, the educated people, were fond of these verse satires by Dryden, by Alexander Pope. Now, Gray, from these 15th stanza onwards, will keep that in mind, the popularity of satire. And that's why he will include some satiric reference to some characters, some personalities, some who are maybe good, maybe bad, but they are controversial. So let me resume my interpretation and analysis. Some village Hampton, that with dauntless breast the little torrent of his fields withstood. In this village, in this churchyard, under these graves of this churchyard, there might have been lain some people, some villagers, who could be compared with Hampton, who were like Hampton. Now, who is this Hampton? Hampton was John Hampton, his full name. He was an MP. He was a very civil rights activist during this early part of 17th century. And he defied against the autocracy of Charles I, the English king. Especially he campaigned against a particular kind of tax. It was called ship money, S-H-I-P, ship money. This was a kind of tax imposed by the King Charles I on the people, on the middle class people of England, especially of the coastal areas. So he fought against this decision, and he had said that only Parliament could impose such kind of tax, not the king. And this conflict later on led to a further conflict between the parliamentarians, those who supported the parliament and those who supported the king. And finally it led to the civil war in 1642. And you know that it was a bloody history in England. Civil war of the 17th century. It caused many lives, many innocent lives, also the lives of kings and also many leaders. But what is important is John Hampton. John Hampton was a good man from the point of view of the middle class, who supported the middle class against the King Charles I. So what he says, he had a dauntless breast. He has indomitable, courageous heart, who withstood means defied the little tyrant of his fields. John Hampton defied King Charles I. Now here, under this grave, may lie some people, some villagers who were as courageous as John Hampton and who defied whatever or whoever was tyrannous in his fields, means in this village. In this village, there might have been some tyrannous people like King Charles I. But in this village, there were also these villagers, courageous villagers, who defied those tyrants. So this village had both people like John Hampton and also people like Charles I. So, in a satiric way, Gray is admiring John Hampton, people like leaders like John Hampton, and criticizing kings like Charles I. Notice the change of tone. The poem now becomes slightly satiric, forgetting its elegiac tone, deviating from its central aspect. Some mute inglorious Milton here may rest under this grave. Some mute, some villagers who are like Milton, who had that potentiality to become a great poet like John Milton of the 17th century. So what it means? It means these people had the talent, had the potentiality to become a poet like Milton, but they are silent. In fact, they were forced to be silent, means muted, and inglorious. That is, they didn't achieve glory like John Milton. Again, the same earlier tone and theme, that these villagers had potentialities to become great leaders like John Hampton and great poet like John Milton. So here may rest means here may lie under these graves. Also some Cromwell, guiltless of his country's blood. This is a very controversial line, especially in the context of 17th and 18th century. What it means, let me paraphrase it first. Here under this grave may lie, may rest some people, some villagers like Oliver Cromwell, who are guiltless of his country's blood. The question is or was Oliver Cromwell guiltless of his country's blood? No. This was a very controversial claim. Who was Oliver Cromwell? I have already told you about civil war during from 1642, during the middle part of 17th century. Now, this Cromwell was a supporter of Parliament, and he parliamentarian force. He led a military force on behalf of the parliamentarians against King Charles I. And he won the victory in that civil war against the King Charles I, and he caused to sign the execution order of King Charles I. So King Charles I was beheaded, and his young son Charles II was sent into exile. Now when Oliver Cromwell took control over the power and the authority over England, what he did, he was a liberal leader, a leader of the liberals, of the parliamentarians. Initially, he was thought to be a leader of the people. But when he assumed the title of Lord Protector and formed his own government, formed his own ministry, he became very cruel, especially against the Catholics. He was a Puritan leader, so it was very normal to be aggressive against the Catholics. So he became extremely brutal against especially the Irish and Scottish Catholics. In fact, he undertook a military campaign against the Irish people, the Irish government, and he crushed them into defeat, and it was claimed that he caused massacres in Ireland. So, when after his death, after Cromwell's death, when Charles II was restored to the crown, that is in 1660, he became so much controversial, especially disliked by the royalists, that when the restoration of monarchy took place in 1660, that is the son of Charles I, Charles II, was restored upon the throne. An investigative committee was formed, and his dead body, his corpse, was dug out from his grave. And he was again, that dead body was beheaded as a symbolic sense of justice. So, what I'm saying, all these things, that Oliver Cromwell was a very controversial leader. Earlier, people thought him to be very liberal, a good man who is fighting for the people, for the rights of the people, for the liberty of the people. You know that John Milton also supported Oliver Cromwell. But later, he deviated his ways. He became very autocratic himself, assuming the title of Lord Protector. And he caused the execution of the king, which created a lot of anger among the people. So, the anger became so intensified that even after his death, he was beheaded for the second. So he was killed after his death in a symbolic sense of justice. So what this line means, let me return to the line of the text. Some Cromwell guiltless of his country's blood. So here, in these graves, under these graves, there might have been some people, villagers, who stood for liberty like Cromwell, but who were guiltless, unlike Cromwell. So Oliver Cromwell was not guiltless. In fact, he was guilty of his country's blood. The bloodshed he caused in Ireland, the bloodshed he caused in Scotland, also within England during the Civil War, he was not guiltless. His intention may be good, but he caused a lot of bloodshed. So he was not guiltless. But here we have two aspects of one character, Cromwell. One aspect is very good, acceptable, that is his liberal, democratic attitude. And the other, his autocratic, cruel, and blatant military campaign against Ireland, against Scotland. So what Gray is saying that Cromwell has both aspects, dual aspects, good and bad. He is accepting the good ones. So good ones means these villagers had the qualities to become a liberal democratic leader like Cromwell. But they would not have been guilty like Cromwell of his own country's blood. Here country's blood means blood of the people of the country. So again, this is very controversial line in terms of the politics and political sympathy. Some people still sympathize with Cromwell, some people still criticize him. Move on to the next stanza. The applause of listening senates to command, the threats of pain and ruin to despise, to scatter plenty over a smiling land and read their history in a nation's eyes. Now, they had these potentialities, these villages, these simple villagers who are now lying dead on these graves. They had the ability, the potentiality to command, means to deserve, to secure the applause, that is the appreciation of listening senates. So, referring to the earlier character John Hampton, who was a great leader, great member of parliament. So people used to listen to him and appreciate him. People means also the member of parliament, the senates, the members of the upper house and lower house. So if these villagers could have become a politician like John Hampton, they could have commanded, they could have deserved the appreciation of the senates who would listen to him, who would listen to their speech, their address. To despite the threats of pain and ruin, they had the potentiality, ability to despise, that is to hate, to remove the threats of pain and ruin. Like other great leaders of England's history, great politicians of England history, they would have the ability to defy, to dislike, to defy the threats of pain. If you want to become a good, courageous leader, you have to suffer pain, you have to suffer destruction, and you have to defy it. So they had these potentialities to scatter plenty over a smiling land. Again, all these to applaud, to command, to despise, to scatter. These verbs were actually the ability, would have been the abilities, possibilities and realities of these villagers. But fortune didn't allow them. Their situation, the circumstances didn't allow them. Fate denied them that possibility, that opportunity to become a great leader like Cromwell or Hampton. Obviously, accepting their good qualities, not their unacceptable qualities. To scatter means to spread. Plenty is an adjective. Now we have a question, what is the noun of plenty? Now, here it could mean plenty of happiness, plenty of charity, plenty of liberty. It could mean liberty, happiness, charity. As a good leader, you must spread all these things, scatter over the smiling land. When the land will smile, the people of the land will smile, will be happy. If you, as a good leader, scatter plenty of happiness, causes of happiness, liberty, and charity, and read their history in a nation's eyes. And these people would have become so popular, so great, that their history would have been written in chronology, and people of later generations of this nation, that is England, would read their history, would read their biography. So read their history. History contains not only their biographical facts, history contains their activities, their achievement. So, in a nation's eyes means nation is personified. Here the people of these nations would read with their eye, would witness with their eye the history of these great people, of these villagers who would have become a great leaders like John Hampton and also Cromwell. Their Lord forbade, but their Lord forbade. So these were the possibilities which they could have achieved if fate held them, if fate provided them that situation, that opportunity. But no. Their fate, their lot forbade. Forbade means denied. Denied all these things. All these things means all these things in the previous stanzas. To command the appreciation of the senates, to despise, deny the threats of pain and ruin, to scatter plenty of happiness, plenty of liberty, and to be part of the nation's history. These were the possibilities that their fate denied them. They are now lying under these graves in this country churchyard. Let me move on to the next line. Nor circumscribed alone, their growing virtues, but their crimes confined. So their fate did two things. One is good, and the other one is bad. What is bad? Their fate denied them these opportunities. This is bad. This is unacceptable. So that's why he says their fate, their lot, nor alone means not only circumscribed means restricted, not only restricted, they are growing virtues. They are growing means the potential, it is virtues that would have flourished, the virtues which would have developed, flourished if they were given proper situation, proper opportunity. So no, that didn't happen. Their lot restricted not only their growing virtues, but also their crimes confined, but also confined their crimes. Again, very controversial line, referring to Cromwell perhaps. Confined also means restricted, prevented their crimes. So this fate is responsible for both. One, the first, that their fate restricted their virtues, their potentialities, but it also did one good thing. Their fate prevented them from committing any crime, as Oliver Cromwell did. So again, satirically referring to Oliver Cromwell, because he caused a massacre, bloodshed, especially in Ireland. So, confined their crimes. It is good. Their fate didn't allow them to flourish, but their fate also didn't allow them to commit any crime. This is good. Forbade to wade through slaughter to a throne. Their fate forbade. Their fate forbade them. Forbade means prevented them. Prevented them to wade through slaughter. Slaughter means murders, bloodsheds, to a throne. Obviously, this line refers to Oliver Cromwell, who went through bloodshed, who went through slaughter, who caused the beheading of King Charles I, who caused loss of bloodsheds of innocent lives. So it is metaphorically swimming through, it's like swimming through a bloody river. He waded, that means he swam. Wading doesn't mean swim, but to walk through the river, across the river. So to wade means to go through, to walk through the bloody river and to achieve the throne. Who did this? Oliver Cromwell. And shut the gates of mercy on mankind. And as a bloody leader, as a bloody murderous leader, slaughterous leader, Oliver Cromwell shut the gates of mercy. He could have and should have shown mercy to King Charles I. But when he achieved power, he achieved victory, he didn't show that mercy. Not only to King Charles I, but also to whole mankind, especially referring to the innocent lives, the innocent people of Ireland, the Catholic people of Ireland. He should have shown the mercy, but he shut the gates of mercy. Again, it's a satiric comment against Oliver Cromwell, who achieved his throne, his power, through bloodshed, through slaughterous ways, and who shut the Christian sense of mercy against mankind. So, as a Puritan, he was also criticized. As a brutal, cruel leader, he is criticized. So, what Gray wants to say that these people didn't have the opportunity to achieve their glory, to flourish their talent, their merit. But their fate also did one thing good. That is, the fate didn't allow them to commit such crimes as Oliver Cromwell did. Crimes against humankind, crimes against innocence. So again, this is not like elegy that you will not find in an elegy. You will find very rarely. In fact, you must remember Lycidas by, again, a great pastoral elegy by John Milton, where we also find some satiric comments. So again, and often you will find such deviating satiric comments against religion, even politics, even in such melancholic, mournful poems like elegy. So that's why this is not a conventional elegy. The struggling pangs of conscious truth to hide, to quench the blushes of ingenuous shame, or heave the shrine of luxury and pride with incense kindled at the muse's flames. This is against extremely satiric, this whole stanza. In fact, the last 2 or 3 stanzas had been very satiric against the contemporary or the politicians of previous generations. What is being satirized here? The struggling pangs of conscience to hide. They didn't have the opportunity. That means their fate, this whole 2 or 3 stanzas continue from the line, from the clause, their Lord forbid. Their Lord forbid, their fate forbid them to do such things like this. In this stanza he says, their fate forbade them to hide, that is to suppress, to conceal the struggling pangs of conscious truth. So if you are conscious of truth, if you know the truth, and if you want to suppress that truth, you must struggle. You must struggle against the pangs. So these pangs are caused by your effort, by your struggle to hide the truth of which you are conscious of, well aware of. So who can do this? The people who are very sophisticated, who belong to urban culture. They didn't have any difficulties in hiding the truth, which they are even conscious of. So, Gray is differentiating these people, these villagers, simple villagers, against the sophisticated citizens and urban people like Oliver Cromwell or like other characters, figures, political or poetic figures of the time. So he is in general way criticizing them, those people of urban culture, people who belong to sophisticated urban culture. To quench the blushes of ingenuous shame, their fate forbade them to quench. To quench means to extinguish. Again, the sense of suppression, to hide, to quench, almost same connotation. To extinguish, here quench should not mean satisfy. Satisfy connotes something which we desire, but here quench means to extinguish the fire. Know what? They quench. Their fate forced them to quench, to extinguish the blushes of ingenuous shame. Ingenuous shame. Ingenuous means very unsophisticated. Again, as I say that these people are unsophisticated. So their sense of shame, which doesn't need to be suppressed, doesn't need to be extinguished. So the blushes means, again, it belongs to very sophisticated culture, that when you blush, it means you express a kind of sense of shame. So blushing with shame, it connotes a blushing with shame, sense of shame. But these people don't need to be ashamed. They didn't need to be ashamed. They were unsophisticated. So their fate forbade them to extinguish their sense of shame, because they hadn't commit any crime, any sin that they should be ashamed of. No. They are very simple, naive people. So they don't need to suppress their blushes. They don't need to extinguish their blushes of sense of, which express their sense of shame, their sense of guilt. Why? Because they are simple people, simple villagers, unsophisticated people. Or heap the shrine of luxury and pride. Their fate